Podcast time, people. Like I said, we're shifting the schedule, the recording date to Tuesday, releasing the show on Wednesday. We did that in the hopes that we'd have more people more often, but it looks like it's the Sam and me show again. So Sam's turning the big 4-0 this week. What's up, birthday show? So we're going to make old jokes, even though he's the youngest of the set. We've got stripper news. We've got some more shit on guns and whatnot to talk about. I need to practice not cussing in the first 7 minutes because that really messes with the algorithm on YouTube, and I suck at it. So anyway, almost an agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check us out there. It's got the Voter Guide 22, KGIS, Knox County Election Commission links so you can figure out who you're voting for or who you're allowed to vote for by what district you're in. Registration status, all those important things you need to know. And then you go down and you'll see all the candidates for all the different races. And if I have an interview with them, there's a link to it. And I try to link their individual websites as well. So I'm going to continue working on that. I've got Janet Testerman coming up today for your guys' sake. So that'll be out shortly as well. Anyway, almost in agreement. We're going to do a show. Happy birthday, Sam! I meant to put the party thing in there. Sam's birthday, 40.
We talked about using those hotkeys a little bit more often. I think at one point you'd added a laugh track and the applause.
Right, and then I had the boxing bell. That was one that I like to have. I programmed that one in just for the first time I did the party chair shows. And I mean, those are, I don't know. That was a great show. I think all of the shows I've done with him have been more or less great.
All right, campaign finance, go. Ding, ding, ding.
I'm really frustrated with Herrera because I can't get him to schedule. And I do like Randy a lot, but it's a different dynamic having Randy and Matt instead of Daniel and Matt because Randy is former chair, Daniel is current chair, Matt.
Or even just having Randy and Daniel as well together.
Right. Did that one once too. I think Daniel's a little hesitant. But I find that interesting in interacting with people who listen to the show or have listened to the show and hate us for one reason or hate me for one reason or another. Because I platform crazy right-wing conspiracy theorists or some bullshit like that. And so there's a whole set of people that have this I had Daniel Driscoll or David Driscoll, Driscoll on, or I had Cipro on. So that means I'm, and I don't know well enough to call them out on anything that's untrue or some bullshit like that. It means I'm letting them propagate their lies and not fact-checking their shit in real time. Which, okay, I get the complaint. I could be better. I could research my people a little bit more. So when they do shit like that I can try to catch them on it. But I don't. And I'm not planning on it. That's actually intentional.
I mean, there's a wide swath of
there's
of things, of knowledge that we just don't have.
Right. And it's but after first couple I did with Gina and Massey and Manis and Kyle Ward and stuff like that, I realized that I see the value in intentionally not knowing who and what about these people going into it, because my assumption is that I'm asking the same questions a lot of random people are asking. I'm thinking the same thoughts a lot of random people are thinking about trying to understand what's going on in these things, and I don't want to bias my own interview by being overeducated on a topic, because I think that will take me off into tangents and stuff like that normal people that don't pay a ton of attention and don't know the depths will get lost on quickly. So
that was part of the reason you came up with that set questions.
Right. So anyway, but I think it's funny because I think Daniel was scared of us for a while too, because he knows that I have Matt on a lot and that I like Matt and I'm friends with Matt and I've had a bunch of Democratic candidates on. And so I have this weird worst of both worlds situation where since I platform the other,
right,
side A doesn't like me because I platform side B doesn't like me because I platform side A. And it's this is the fucking problem with the world we're in right now, is that me, the middleman who's trying to get a better understanding of this, is the bad guy for both sides because I give a shit enough to talk to both of them. But so yeah, I am a little frustrated with Daniel not getting a Daniel show in, but I've got a couple I got Constant scheduled. I've got Kaz, who I've been giving shit to on the internet's scheduled, because that's going to be a fun one, because apparently he's just like that. That's just who he is. And so I'm trying to get Elaine Davis, selfishly, District 18's the top of my list to make sure I cover District 18 because that's mine. It's yours now too. I do want to get Gloria back in, and I want to get this Paz character that's running against her in 90. I'm curious about her health long term. I think it's a valid conversation to have. That she's been around, she's been had a walker or a scooter the last couple of times I've seen her publicly. She's been on a scooter or some sort of assisted to walking, which doesn't exclude anything, but
Could just mean she had surgery.
Well, no, she had a stroke.
Oh.
Or yeah, it was like a heat stroke. I think it was a stroke. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she had like an episode at an event and got taken to the hospital from an event, and like she's been pretty public about it. I'm not like leaking anything special here, but and on that, in events on Saturday, there's a March for Your Lives, which apparently is a national organization that about gun safety shit.
Yeah, I saw WBR kept running the same story. It was
Crutch Park.
It was from like a week ago. It was like right outside of Westtown Mall, right there in the corner of Morrell and Kingston.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, there was a rally down there.
A few dozen people.
That's one of the ones.
They keep like running the same story. I was like, "Oh, are they doing it again?" I was like, "No, that's the same story."
Well, that's one of the ones I saw pictures of. That Gloria was in. Had a. I think she was like on a Rascal. Like it was a sit down scooter.
Gotcha.
Kind of thing. And so I don't know. Again, I hope she is healthy and I hope she's okay. And I don't wish to make it a political issue, but I do think that is a valid conversation to have when you have candidates that are running for an office that takes a period of time and they're in questionable health.
I think there's a Pennsylvania congressman that
it's
just got
a guy
hospital
running against Dr. Oz, who had a stroke a couple weeks ago.
Is that for Senate or I think it's for Congress?
Senate, I think Oz is running for that Senate seat. I don't remember. You're right. I don't remember which one of the two, but yes, it's because Dr. Oz beat in the Republican primary, ended up having a recount, and I heard today on Breaking Points that the
other guy conceded.
The other guy conceded, but the count had Oz like plus 900 and something in a state of like in a total total ballots cast in that primary was multiple million.
Yeah.
And he's winning by 900 or something in one of in the recount. And the guy finally conceded to it. It's like, damn, that's a close fucking race. Which is weird, though, is because the guy who he beat was I'm the Trump candidate, but Trump supported Oz.
Really?
Yeah. Because he likes him because he's a reality TV person. Like, legitimately, like that is a quote out of Trump's mouth. He knows his way around the TV stuff. I like that. But
great credentials.
Yeah, so that was... but yeah, I got Constance, I got Kaz, I've got... Who else do I have scheduled right now? Kaplan, who is the Democrat running for 18. Kaz and Constance, and I think that's all I have currently scheduled. Hansen was great. That was one of the better, more like I failed miserably in that show because there was so much going on that I couldn't keep a train.
Are you geeking out?
Well, it was like he'd start talking about something and I'm like, that's super interesting, and then I'd veer off deeper into some little sub tangent. And so like the original question,
you gotta stop doing that.
I can't stop doing that.
You gotta.
It's interesting.
You interview people, not monologue.
No, I monologue. This is my show. And I do. My opinion.
Invite people on to listen to you.
My opinion matters on my show.
You get tired of talking to yourself. I need to have people come on.
Right. But I mean, I acknowledge that I do, and I get excited, and I like to throw my opinions in on as many things as possible. So,
like write yourself like little notes when you have like dead airspace. Well, no, I mean, like instead of like interrupting, like,
come back to that, yeah.
Like, I wanted to ask you more on that.
Yeah, and so I don't know, like,
just in case the interview starts to kind of.
Yeah, that is something I could do a little better at, is at least having some stuff prepped, because I have had interviewees that are really hard. Because I want it to be conversational.
Like, what do you want to know?
Right, and it's like I don't like. One is the acknowledgement is I don't know a lot about the topic. That's why I have them in here.
Right.
But two is like I want to be conversational. I don't want it to be like I have a list of 20 questions I want you to answer.
That's right.
I want to talk to you about the things that you know really well that I don't know shit about.
Right.
And if it wanders off, then it wanders off.
And it puts them at ease when you have it more conversational.
Yeah.
I feel like they're getting put on the spot.
Yeah, that's...
How do you feel about this?
Right.
What would you do with this?
Right. But so, I mean, it was very interesting that as far as... I think it confirmed some of the theories or guesses that I had about how stuff kind of works. And... it's really like I think it was important to do as part of the election conversation because we have a considerable number of commissioners on ballot, both at larges, and the biggest thing county commission does is land use stuff and the growth that we're experiencing and how to manage that growth and what's going on as far as the housing market and the economics of housing and all that kind of shit, which is Hansen. I always want to say Henson, but it's Hansen. But that's his expertise, and so it's like, I asked the stupid question that I always ask. It's like, do we want growth? Is that a conversation worth having? Which, to me, the answer is yes, but the reality is the answer is never going to be yes. The answer is yes, we need to have the conversation. But the answer, or the conversation will be, we have to have growth. Because the way Knox County is set up specifically is that we either have growth or we have incremental tax increases on a regular basis. And it's like, it's a chicken or the egg, because the fact that the taxes are so low are one of the reasons why we're so desirable.
Well, you would think at some point it would at least kind of level out, because generally, your costs are going up depending on the reason for it. If it's just aging infrastructure, I mean, yeah, that's going to continue to go. But if you don't have population growth, you're not increasing garbage waste, unless people are just starting to throw more shit away. But generally, some things like that would level off. Water usage,
right?
If you're not having increased.
But your labor, your labor, which is probably we could go pull the budget, but I would say labor is the number one cost overall for county.
Really?
Whether that's parks employees, whether that's the actual mayor's office and his staff. The commission doesn't get paid anything, but all the different people that work for Knox County, being whether it's cleanup crews and cops and teachers and all of that, their pay has to go up incrementally to offset inflation. We can go down that rabbit hole a little further. We got into that one late in the last episode, but the cost of people goes up over time.
Yeah.
And so with our tax system in place, where a reassessment like we just went through cannot lead to more income for the county, which means the effective tax rate drops. So for me, my house is, I think we're at 2% right now. My new assessed value is going to drop it, so it's going to be Compass guys are talking about it, like 1.25% or something like that is what the new tax rate will be once this whole process finishes, which is the lowest. Jesse said he asked Chris Caldwell about it. Chris Caldwell went back to the office and looked it up. The lowest Caldwell could find was in 1947, and it was like 2 flat. So as far as effective tax rate goes, it's been as low as it's ever been. But you got to, like, the tax rate, property tax rate is such a weird thing to talk about, because it's just weird. So it's 1% now, right? But it was 2% 10 years ago. But you could buy the same house 2 years ago for half of what you're buying it now. So the value of the house has gone up so much that, it's just a weird. The math is weird. It's hard to conceptualize the math of it, because you're looking at like, I don't know this for a fact, but I'd say like 1947. There probably wasn't much out here in the west end of Knoxville, Westtown Mall area anyway, but you could probably get what would be considered a above average home back then for like $10,000. You know what I'm saying?
This Rocky Hill community has been here for a while.
Okay, but I mean, this house was built in the 70s.
Right.
I think my neighbor's house is one of the older ones in the neighborhood, and it was like 54. But I'd still say, just conceptually, I would guess that the original build and sale of that house next door was under $15,000. And so over 80 years, the tax rate keeps falling and falling and falling, but the value and the taxes collected from said house have gone up. Yeah. Is the point of that whole thing. And so, yeah, but anyway, the point is we have to grow to offset not raising taxes locally. Because if we don't, because the easy way to look at it is you take like Hardin Valley, which 15 years ago there was next to nothing out there. And so all that land that was farmland that brought in a little bit of property tax revenue for the county is now exponentially more valuable and bringing in exponentially more tax revenue, because it's changed hands, it's been rezoned, and all the different stuff it does to turn into the developments that have gone in there now. And so you take a spot like, okay, a better example would be for us, because it's easier for us to, like that whole Turkey, or the whole Publix, Target, all that stuff down there on North Shore.
Yep. Like
back when we were working at that McDonald's, it was a split McDonald's with a gas station. It's a BP, I think it was.
Amoco.
Was it Amoco? I don't know. I just remember that they sold us, or somebody that knew that they were buying it for us, cigarettes all the time.
Hey.
And then the Kroger was down there, and then that was it for a long time. And then the Walgreens came in, and then the pilot with the Wendy's came in. There's the Ruby Tuesdays up there on the hill. The First Tennessee Bank was still on that side, but there's nothing on the other side of Pillissippi. Like all of that, which was probably a couple $100 a year in tax revenue for the county, is now developed and is probably a couple $100,000 in tax revenue just for those apartments that are in there, the Publix, that shopping center, all that stuff, because it grew, not because the tax rate changed.
Right.
And so that's how the county brings in enough income to pay what they want to pay, or what they need to pay for the services that the county provides. Which,
but isn't the city line right there at?
I don't know, because
someone always talked about Pellissippi was the city line, and I'm like, oh, that's why everything's on the other side of Pellissippi.
Well, I don't know. It's a good question, because like a lot of that commercial, like a lot of that, almost all of North Shore is city from here to there, but I don't know if it goes right past there. I don't know if like where the Kazzies and stuff is where it ends, or the Farragut liquor store, or the Admiral liquor store.
I think you go back into county once you go down North Shore towards that way. I think you get out of the county for a little while.
No, the Kroger, like I know the Kroger and that McDonald's and stuff is city. Because that was okay. Because back when I had Kyle
there
Ward,
used to be a sign if you came from that area coming up here, maybe just a couple miles down the road. There was that welcome to Knoxville sign.
It might come in and out, because that was a Victor Ashe annex.
Really?
Because that was one of the things when I was talking to Kyle Ward about the flooding down there at the end of Ebenezer at North Shore.
Right.
Is the easements are city managed. It's a state highway
in the county,
but most of the stuff around it is county. And so it was a weird little jurisdictional nightmare down there.
Not it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I think the last I heard on it was the city said, sure, you can use our land, but we're not paying anything for this. We're not paying any amount. Like the state said they'd put in a couple $100,000. The county had allocated a couple $100,000, but the total cost of the pumping station and whatever needed to be done was more than that. But the city said, yeah, you can use the land, but we're not going to chip in any funds. Which is again, it's the jurisdictional weirdness of it. It's like, well, as far as voting population out there, there's not much. Technically, the people that own the property can vote in city elections, but the people that own that property own a ton of property around town.
They'd have to pick which district they want to go vote.
Right, but they can only
they're eligible to vote in any of them, but
right, they can only vote in one of them.
Right.
If they're city residents, then it's the one they live in. But if they're county residents but own land in the city, they could vote in. Yeah, if it's a city race, they can vote in the city race as a. I can't remember what the title of that thing is, but they could do it. But it's still not against the number of people that live out there that are affected by the flooding. There's very few voting populace that can pitch a fit about that. So the county's going to end up having to foot the bill or whatever. But yeah. So anyway, that's the thing to me is that growth is inevitable. It's required. Like I made the joke to him. I was like, we've got like, to me, for commissioner's sake, for the political part of the process, is we need commissioners that are clear and transparent and much more eloquent to say tough shit. We're putting this stuff down. We have to develop these properties. We have to let growth happen. We have to do these things, because I think the populace as a whole, and we've talked about it a million times, I think the majority of Knox County is like, yes, we want growth because growth pays the bills and growth's how we get stuff, but not over here.
Right, exactly. It's that whole not in my backyard thing.
Right, and if it's not over here, then it goes over there, and then that neighborhood says, no, not over here.
Like, oh yeah, we've got an old jail. We need a bigger jail. But,
right.
Don't
put
it close
jail,
to
but
me.
that's what I'm saying. It's not even a jail. That's something that I can see the argument.
Anything.
But jail, a mental hospital, or something like that. That's it's still the same argument, but that's at least got some like, hey, that's a negative. I don't want that. We have kids here, whatever. But it's like, you want to put a neighborhood over there? No.
Right.
Well, you move that same development over to this patch, and all those neighbors around there are like, no, we don't have the infrastructure for it. We don't have this. It's going to overcrowd the schools. And it's like, no matter where we put it in Knox County, the locals say, no, thank you.
Right.
Which says to me that we don't want the growth. And unless there's some way to like equitably distribute the growth so that each community gets a small fuck you every time we do a development, so everybody at the same time says, no, we don't want that here. Well, too bad, because we got to put it somewhere. but every neighborhood gets one at the same time. Like, I don't know how. Like, it's ridiculous. I know.
No, I just came up with a funny idea. You do one of those things where you've got like a whole neighborhood, one of those like old school like push button like TNT blower upper things, but there's lines going to each house. They don't know which one it's hooked up to. It's like, well, if we got to grow, like somebody's house has to go.
Right, and I think one of the points that reminded me of that I think that Hansen made that was a very practical point is that a lot of people jump to the worst case scenario. One of the things that more progressive cities have done, or more progressive communities have done in handling growth, is they've abolished single family zoning. Doesn't mean you can't build a single family home on a piece of land. It's just there's no land that's zoned for a single-family home, right? And so that would make my neighborhood, for example, it means like, well, I could theoretically, if they did that, put a small apartment complex, turn my house into a duplex, do this, do all these different things, if that happens. But people jump to the conclusion of, well, developer's going to come in and buy my neighbor's house and the 3 neighbors next to him and put a 200-unit condo thing in and ruin the whole blah, 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 blah. And it's like, maybe. But most likely, it will be just no new developments that have a bunch of single-family homes. It won't be a bunch of McMansion neighborhoods on new developments. It's very unlikely that a developer is going to come in and tear down a neighborhood to build a new high-density neighborhood. And so he's like, I think that's one of those arguments that's a little bit disingenuous, for lack of a better word, because, yes, it's possible. It's theoretically possible. Some guy with money, or girl, some person with money that wanted to do it could buy my whole neighborhood, all 115 houses or whatever, level the whole fucking thing, build a giant condo, apartment, multi-use complex, blah, 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 and turn what is 100 residences into 700, 800 residences and make it super packed in here. Right. But it's very unlikely that a developer would do that because you have to displace so many people to get the thing off and all. Like it's just
a lot of people to buy out.
Right. It's more effort and work because, like, you know, I'd be in a fun spot because I'm kind of right in the middle of a stretch. All my neighbors sell, and I'm like, nah. I'll be like the guy's house in Up. Remember that scene in Up?
Yeah.
Where it's like there's just these giant, and there's this little tiny house right in the middle.
Right.
That'd be me. Because, I mean, realistically, the last one in either gets screwed and gets nothing, or gets the biggest payout because that is the last piece of the puzzle that the developer needs. And you say, well, I'm going to ask for 3 times value because I can't.
Not sure how well it's worked out. I know some cities have tried, and when building new developments, you know, building some apartments, townhomes, or whatever, but then also trying to put in kind of like the amenities around it, like having a grocery store there, and
right, these town center concepts, yeah,
kind of a town center. Because I mean, when you do put that many people in a small area, especially with existing housing and whatever all around it, you are tripling, quadrupling the amount of traffic. To where I think if you've got that, at least that core there isn't having to travel as far outside of going to work. But
right, and it's an interesting. I mean, it'd be an interesting business concept too. Like what we wouldn't open a shop in one of those. It'd be a very weird spot.
Right, it used to be common. I mean, people had like a 2-story, had their store downstairs, and their house was upstairs.
Yeah, especially in smaller towns, downtowns. But yeah, the butcher shop and the butcher lived upstairs kind of deal. Yeah. That was not an uncommon thing.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think...
Like, how long's your commute?
I mean, I think that's one of the...
15 seconds when my legs are sore?
Right. Depends how much I drank last night. I mean, it's the commute's not the problem. It's the waking up after whatever. So,
right.
But, I mean, yeah, I could... Like, I mean, that's kind of like... I have a friend who owns a restaurant bar down on Gay Street, and he lives upstairs. There's 2 apartments above the bar, and him and I think one of them just bought a house, so he moved out. But that was there. I mean, he literally walks down. I mean, it's a double flight of stairs. It's not a standard flight of stairs. It's a long flight. But walks down the stairs, locks that door, takes like a 7-foot walk from his front door to the front door of his business, unlocks that door, and goes inside.
I think they kind of tried to do that on Gay Street with all the lofts they started putting in down there. You started having a few stores that were popping up, like a little liquor store,
I mean,
bodega type area.
Everything new down there has been street level commercial, street level retail of either restaurant or like actual retail, niche-y, whatever, liquor store, Mass General, that kind of thing. And then some of them have a floor or 2 of office space, and then the top couple are condo, apartment, lofts, whatever the technical word is. I mean, that's what the new one is. It's going in on Summit and Gay Street there. There's a big. That reminds me. There's a big stink. There's some apparently. City of Knoxville had what's the word when you commissioned some Brooklyn artists to do some.
I was about to say I thought there was
project.
a big statue in there already. Some kind of.
No, that's the opposite corner.
Oh.
Yeah, there's that little park.
It's like a big circle thing.
Yeah, it's a treble clef.
Is that what that is?
Yeah. I don't know if that's where this new art project's going, but apparently the let me see if I can find it. You all should read Compass, so I don't have to remember all these things. But wrong one. Downtown sculpture. So this is from Compass email. If you're a subscriber, you get it every day. After a 2-year delay, this is via Compass, to make sure I'm referencing them correctly. After a 2-year delay because of COVID-19, the Sculpture Commission for Cradle of Country Music Park in downtown Knoxville is coming close to its debut. The piece is called Pier 865. It has been made by the Mark Fornez in Brooklyn. The Harvey Broom Group of the Sierra Club wants nearly $1.15 million project put on hold because of the landscaping plan calls to cut down some trees. So between the piece of art itself and whatever landscaping work and prep needs to be done to the location, it's a $1.15 million project.
Isn't the Sierra Club a naturalist club?
Yeah, that's why they're mad at they're cutting down trees.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the opposite.
Yeah.
Never mind. Okay.
But the city's reply is that they're cutting down 5 mature trees, but they're going to add 9 new trees to the area as part of the park that this thing goes in.
Yeah, but how big are those 9?
Young, whatever. I don't know. It's losing 5 mature to 9.
Some saplings in there.
I don't know. But, yeah, that's happening. I
can kind of see that. I mean, depending on the tree, I mean, you're looking at 20, 25 years before they're back to the mature level of what those trees already are. Creating shade, keeping our downtown a little bit cooler. Both temperaturally and culturally.
Culturally, it looks cool. But yeah, the March for Our Lives thing, that was the one thing I want to talk about. It was kind of what came with it.
Where's it going on at?
Crutch Park, Market Square.
Okay. But anyway, so like, I don't know. You want to talk about strippers? Or you want to talk about guns, or something different? That's just stuff I know we've kind of. I mean, guns is a repetitive conversation. We've already had it. Other than like we were joking about that. Okay, we'll go down this round. Like there was that political cartoon that was from whatever that I sent to the group. Right.
And it's kind of like. I'm not sure if it's actually making fun of Biden because Biden had a really weird, bad quote about like a 9mm round will take your lungs out, where a 22 will just poke holes in you. Which I mean, I agree that 22 will just poke holes in you, but a 9mm will rip out your lungs or something like that. It was a really weird quote.
I mean, it's all possible. It depends on what round you're putting in there.
Right.
You're putting a hollow point in there or whatever.
Right. The home defense rounds like I have, which there's 2 points to them. So why I get a home defense round is the thing about a home defense round is it doesn't go through walls, and that's important when there's other people in the building that you might have to shoot in. Right. But also that same idea of why it doesn't go through walls is that the bullet will flatten and fragment. And so it loses all that inertia because it breaks up into pieces, but if it does that to your body, it does a lot of damage to your body too. Right. But you know, that's why a lot of
possible, but needs clarification. Might be the fact check on that.
It's just a weird thing. Like I don't know, like that's a politician move at large. Is you want to get the quote in, and you don't take the time to actually figure out what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, then I mean, you don't really want to get into specifics, like 9mm loaded with blah 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 blah.
Right. The more detailed you are, the more likely you're going to be called out for being wrong.
3.5 inch. Right.
You know, and so I don't know. So like I don't know. Like Matt Shears and I were having a back and forth about it. He was like, I mean, he was just fishy. He's like, is there any gun law that you would be okay with? And I was like, just like I said on here, I was like, if they want to move assault rifles to 21, then that's fine, as long as everything goes with it. And then I had to go through that whole age of consent speech that I go on all the time or whatever. But I mean, the problem to me is, like, red flag laws scare the shit out of me. And, like, my quote to him was, like, you know, who gets to make the conditions on what is red flaggable? At what point does being a libertarian become red flaggable? You know, if you proudly support Trump, is that red flaggable? Because a lot of people would say yes to that. A lot of people would say it should be. Now, you know, whether that's a case that would
do you honestly think that would have a legal standing?
I don't. What is the legal standing? It's the legal standing is whatever they write into the red flag law. This is a new.
I think there's some states that already have red flag laws.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, the standing is how the law is written, and you write it in a way.
You're asking for a hypothetical when you have case of it being out there.
Okay,
but I've seen most people point to domestic violence. That's one of the biggest kind of indicators.
Right, I get it.
Someone that then afterwards.
Is it Illinois that has the required arrest law for domestic?
No idea.
If there's a couple of states that have it, I think it's Illinois. I don't remember, but there's if you get
at least one of them has to get arrested.
Somebody is getting, like, if the police come out because of domestic, somebody is going to jail that night.
It's not a good chance. I mean, if it's just arguing, a lot of times they'll just force them to separate.
I'm just saying, like, that's all
right, you guys need to have, like,
well, like Max was talking about last week. It was last week. I think it was. He was talking about, like, the guaranteed minimum sentencing. We were talking about that, about how kind of fucked up sometimes. That's kind of that's what this one is to me. It's like it's guaranteed sentencing, or it's like maybe it's a way for them to collect the fees, the cost of sending an officer out, because you're going to have to pay rent for your night in jail and your court fees and all that kind of stuff. So that maybe that'll help offset the costs. I don't know what the reasoning behind it is. I just think that's fucked up.
We passed a law, and I'm pretty sure it has already been signed by Lee, that had to do with basically like early release, like for good behavior. I think that's now been taken away in Tennessee to a relative extent, which a lot of people were against that. They're like, because that's kind of like the one thing that keeps some prisoners, you know, at least on better behavior, when they have that hope of possibly getting out a little bit earlier. Now they've got, like, no reason. They're like,
I wonder what
if I'm doing 10 years and I got to use, then I'm in there for 10 years.
I wonder what the prison guard union stance is.
I think most people in the prisons were against it because they know it could make things worse.
Yeah, but then I don't know,
because you're giving them, like, no incentive to either want to better themselves and, you know, go to some kind of, like, anger management or.
But it is better for employment status of the prison guards to have people in jail longer.
Pretty sure most prisons across the U.S. are understaffed.
Okay.
So I don't think they have anything to worry about. If anything, we got a lot of prisons with some really shitty people in there just because we're short-staffed and they're taking anybody they can get.
So the demand...
There's a high demand. I mean, just like cops.
So high demand for guards should be a positive for guards, and anything that they can do to keep that demand high is good for them. And so if you're the union, then that is a stance that you would probably want to take.
I don't think we have a shortage of prisoners.
I agree. I'm just saying that
overpopulated.
Right, but many unions and organizations like the NRA have a very hardline stance on anything that could become a negative for them. They lobby against. I don't know the truth of it. I don't know.
What would the NRA have anything to do with?
The NRA's.
Okay. I don't know why you're even bringing them up then.
The NRA's hardline stance is that there's no gun control that they're not going to lobby against.
Well, that's cool.
My point is that I would guess, not knowing the facts, but I would guess that prison unions, guard unions, are probably similar in that anything that could possibly negatively impact the incarcerated population, therefore the need for the guards, they would lobby against. That's why one of the biggest lobbyists against the legalization of marijuana is prison unions. They're one of the it was a while back, but they spent a ton of money. They've lobbied with a ton of money against.
They're like, yeah, we want to have all the potheads here.
Yeah, because nonviolent drug offenders are easier to guard,
right?
You know, and so But I mean, that's a significant population that if they let them, if they stopped adding people to that subset of prisoners and released all the ones that were there, that would potentially lower the need for the number of guards that are currently out there. And so the union's against that. So I would say that's probably the same thing here. The union, I would guess that the prisoner guard union likes this no early release program that you're talking about. I would guess. I don't know. We'll have to find somebody. See if we can talk to them. But that would be my guess, is that they lobbied for it. But that's an interesting take, though, because Governor Lee's been kind of decent about some prison reform stuff and trying to get people out and pathways to normal life after prison time kind of things. That's been one of his things.
I could be wrong. I want to say it was kind of one of those things where he didn't really push back against it, and he just kind of like signed it. He wasn't going to veto it, and just didn't really say one way or the other, and just kind of like let it get passed.
Yeah,
I guess didn't want to put his 2 cents on it to say that he was for or against it. It was just kind of like, this is what the legislature wants. That's them doing their job, and I'm here to support them.
Yeah. No, I haven't read this yet. I got an email from the Sycamore Institute on Tennessee tax-funded stadium stuff. I'm planning on reading that. I just haven't read it yet to bring it up as a topic.
I thought I sent you one article of one not long ago.
I mean, like a year or so ago, I remember you sent me one.
Yeah, it's
about
it's been a while.
Because one of the because we talked about it.
It's for a stadium that was built like 4 or 5 years ago.
Right, but it's one of those. It's hard to tangibly count, and so that gray area makes it easier to sell for the developer. You can
hypothesize what could have been built and the amount of money you could have made if you would have put a park or something in there.
Right, and especially for us here with the way downtown is already and the development and the growth that is going on downtown, it would be very hard to prove that the stadium is.
I mean, gambling's not legal here. We could have put a casino in there and
That's
made.
What I think we should do with the city county.
$500 million.
I think we should move the government offices out of city county and turn that into a casino, and then partner it with the old Marriott over there, that other weird shaped building next to the Civic. Just have two casinos in downtown Knoxville, and just the buildings already exist. Just get MGM and Penn National, give them each one, and let them build some nice ass casinos.
I mean, hell, even set it up like Caesars, where they've just got a big giant room that's all just sports betting. Sports betting's legal here. Just have a big, huge sports betting.
But it's only through the app. I hate that. I hate that so much. I hate the way that they did it here. I don't like the sports.
Was it only? All has to be digital?
Yep. There is you cannot brick and mortar. There's no sports book you can walk into other than like Cherokee.
Right.
But I guess that's in North Carolina. And then what's the one out near Memphis?
Tunica.
Yeah, but that's in Mississippi. There's a riverboat somewhere. Cincinnati? That's on the other side of Kentucky.
There used to be one in Cincinnati on the Ohio side.
I don't remember. Anyway, I just think that's like I don't understand why they did it that. Like I have to, in the sense that is online only is easier to track. It's easier for the state to keep an eye on what's going on. It's less intrusive, or they don't have to try as hard to be intrusive to make sure that they're getting their cut. Would be my only guess. That's why they did it, because I mean, to me, like, think of the employment opportunities. Think of the business that you could, like, I mean, regular actual not Knoxville, but Tennessee residents could start a sports book and make a business out of it and get paid and then pay taxes and do all those great things. It's like for jobs and stuff. Like, why would you do it? Why would you put it in the hands of out-of-state, online, whatever? I think there's like 2 that actually are Tennessee.
They're managing it.
I think there are like 2 that are Tennessee based, but I mean the big ones: MGM's online book, and
Caesars.
No, it's the Caesars is now, but
DraftKings.
The DraftKings. Those 2 are the biggest, I think. But I mean, I still use my guy, so I mean I lose all the time anyway, so it's not like. What do I owe you $5? Did we ever settle that bet?
You paid me.
No, the new one. We did a new one a couple weeks ago.
What did we bet on that?
I don't remember. I'll have to go back and find it. We do have an open bet, you and I. It's a $5 one. And I think it was something
we had two that you
right.
already
I
paid
settled
me.
those old ones. This was a new one.
I don't remember what the bet was.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look. Okay, so strippers, right?
Yeah.
And random cool things, maybe not cool things, random things that I learned this week. So last week when the Compass guys were in there, they were talking about the ball down on Alcoa got shut down.
Temporarily.
No, they got shut down. They have to go through
Not
a bunch of
permanently.
process. I mean, they're shut down until they go through a bunch of process to get reopened. And
Right.
often you don't get reopened after these kind of things, especially with this one. But I'll go into my conspiracy theory on that part of the case later. And so it's public nuisance law. It's been around for a while. I've known a number of places personally that I didn't know them as far as I frequented the places, but I knew they existed. Breakers up on Clinton Highway and Merchants before the Pine House was the place we went to after work when I was working up there at the O'Charlie's. Breakers was the only place that was open after we closed at O'Charlie's, and so we'd go over there, and it was sketchy. I didn't like going in there. And so we found the Pine House, and it was beer only, and that was fine with me because I just drink beer anyway, so it's all good.
That pool hall you used to live next to in South Knox.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still open. That place is pretty sketch.
Went
there a couple times
It got
with
tore down
friends
and
that
turned
have
into
been
CVS, then got torn down again. I don't remember, but I know
I
what
thought
you're
the
talking about.
building was still there.
No, it was a CVS, and they turned it into a pool hall. Yeah, the building's still there. It's something different now.
That thing was never a CVS before it was a pool hall. Some old ass building. It was like all concrete basement and everything.
Next to that Subway? Like right there at
No,
Moody?
it was like a little standalone. Yeah, it was right there at Moody. But it was a standalone building, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it used to be a CVS or a Walgreens or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I know what you're talking about.
That place is way too small to be a... Anyway.
The point is public nuisance law is a thing. Knox County has had it for a while. They've used it on a number of occasions. And I get it.
What breakers get it for?
Same shit.
Oh.
Like a couple shootings in the parking lot. A number of fights that get called out often. So there's a couple little points that that bother me about this. Not so much in that I have an issue per se with the public nuisance law, but it's like one of those.
Shut down the Joe.
How many ABC classes have I gone to in my career? Because I've had to keep my ABC card for bartending, for being an owner of a business that sells beer, blah, 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 blah. I've been to a gajillion of those classes. And every time in those classes, they're like, hey, if you got a problem, if you got a customer being an issue, whatever, just give us a call. We don't keep track. We don't pay attention. We don't take notes on how many times we go out to a place. Yeah, you do. You absolutely fucking do. KPD or Knox County Sheriff's Office, they pay attention to how many times they get called out to establishments. Maybe not initially. Maybe first one or two, they don't. They're like, oh, whatever, something happened. But if it becomes a repetitive thing, they keep notes.
Maybe more if they have to actually make a report of something.
But it's the incentive structure is weird because you're trying to teach us in safe service of alcohol that, hey, call us, we're here to help. But if you call us too many times, we'll shut you down and you'll lose your job. So it's kind of a weird incentive in reality when it gets into practice. Do your due diligence to not let people drive drunk and all that kind of stuff. But if some guy insists on driving, even though you know he's hammered, just give us a call. We'll do what we can do. Okay. I don't want that guy to die on his way home. I don't want to hit somebody on his way home. Whatever it is, I'm a decent human being. I don't want this guy to get hurt because he just refuses to not drive or whatever it is. Just call us. KPD says call us. We'll come out and we'll help out.
Right. And
but we're not keeping notes.
They would shut you down for continually calling.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how breakers and shit. That's how it happens. That's always included.
Because breakers was calling.
It's always
the police
included.
Say that people were leaving drunk. Not that shots were
it's
fired in the
always
parking lot
included.
and there were fights in the parking lot.
It's always included in the list of grievances. Yes, there's shootings. There
You're
were
giving
fights.
a very
there were whatever.
menial example, trying to prove your point. I'm sorry, that's not going to fly.
I don't know of a bar that I've ever frequented that didn't have a fight every once in a while.
Right. I agree.
And a number of them got cops called and whatever.
Right.
My point is that it is on the list. When they say breakers got shut down, they had a shooting this year, they had this many fights, they've had this many calls to KPD.
Okay. That was over.
It doesn't matter. My point is they say they're not counting. They're asking you to trust them that they're not going to punish you because you have a bad acting customer. But they keep a list of it, and it's on the list when they do it. When they shut a place down for public nuisance, here's the list of grievances. And every time KPD or Knox County Sheriff's Office is called out there, that's on the list of grievances. And when that number gets a lot, now again, it's not exclusively that. It's shootings, it's big fights, it's major incidences where a bunch of cops come out. That's the one that really gets on the radar when the cops have to come out in force. Maybe a cop gets hurt in the process or something like that. That's when they really start paying attention. But they do keep track. That's my point. But they tell you they don't. And I think that's fucked up. Now,
what did you ask them when they said they don't keep track?
They said, "What do you mean? What did I ask them?" It says, "Hey, this is the speech in the ABC class that I've been to more than 1,000 times. Not 1,000 times. Like I've been to like 10. The general idea of the speech is, if something happens, if there's a problem and you need some help, just give us a call. We'll come out. Don't worry about it. We don't keep track. It's not like we're going to be like, oh, well, we went out to this place 15 times, so we're going to have to shut it. You know, that doesn't have any effect on that. All we care about is making sure you and your customers are safe." That is what KPD tells me in class for ABC cards. So anybody who's serving in Knox County who has done their due diligence and taken the class that they're required to take has been told some version of that speech. Now, the individual officer teaching the class may have different phrasing in the way he says it or whatever, but he says, call us, we'll help. It's not going to negatively affect you and your business.
Okay.
But then they shut places down for nuisance, and they include those in the list of grievances. So it's a lie. They're lying to you in the class. It's not a big lie. No.
You're just stretching their words into a very grand blanket that you assume they're not going to keep track when they get called out for shots fired and a big group fight going on.
If I looked you at, if I look at you right
in
now,
my ABC class, they said that you don't count it.
If I look at you right now, and I told you I was 32 years old, and you find out otherwise because you know better, is that a lie or not? So because you know better means it's not a lie? Because you already know better even before I told you? That means it's not a lie? I should know better because I'm sitting in that class knowing, of course they're going to keep track of these things. Why wouldn't they? Even though he told me that to my face...
I think you're stretching your expectations.
You're right. I often do stretch my expectation for police. You're correct. I'm a little... I as much as I hate on them, I tend to be too positive about their willingness to be anything decent ever. So you're right.
And as far as their... Never mind.
Okay.
I'm sorry you think that in your ABC class...
When they say, we don't keep track of when you call us out for help, and they do, that's a lie. You're sorry that I take that as a lie. I don't know how else to take that.
So you expect them to show up, do whatever they got to do, and just not write a report ever. No one's going to keep track. I don't know.
I expect him to say, "Hey, yeah, if it happens regularly and it becomes the stuff that we do pay attention."
Next one you go to, raise your hand and go, sorry, so if I call it out and I see somebody acting dangerously, possibly threatening somebody, and I call you guys, I see somebody brandishing a weapon. Are you guys going to report that, or are you just going to kind of show up and not write a report and just show up and say everything looks okay? We're not going to write this down.
But again, man, your retelling of my story is that I should have known better.
No,
that it doesn't matter.
I'm not saying you should have known better. I'm saying I think you are stretching their explanation of what they would do.
Okay.
I think in the case of
when
you were saying,
in my face,
hey, we have somebody that just left drunk. No, I don't think they're going to make a report of that, because they're going to make a report if they pull the guy over and get a DUI. It's just going to go as so-and-so arrested for a DUI.
Okay.
Whether or not that gets tied back to the bar, I don't know.
Right, which it does, because I've admitted on record that that person left the bar. If they could figure out that that's the person I'm referencing, at least. I mean, right. They record your 911 or your 911 call.
You didn't serve them. They came in drunk and you refused them and they left.
Doesn't matter.
Because you allowed them into the building, you're now liable?
Mm-hmm. That is ABC law, too. You've taken the class, man. What did you do for the 5 hours you sat through that class?
They don't go over every single example.
Well, maybe it's because I've taken it so many times I've gotten the depth.
It's like a 3-hour class.
Yes, I can't remember. It's Dram Shop, I think it's what it's called. Dram Shop laws. Look it up, everybody.
But I know when we worked at Whiteville's, they said we could technically still get in trouble if a drunk person pulled up to the pump, paid at the pump, and left. we would still be considered liable because
we assisted them in driving. Yes,
right.
If you are now the one gray area I'm not clear about is that if you're off, like if I hold an ABC car, and if we were over here at Roosters because whatever we're hanging out at Roosters and some drunk dude leaves, and I've interacted with him and I can tell he's drunk, I'm like, man, that guy shouldn't be driving. Now, since I'm not working at the establishment that things went down, I don't know if I'm liable.
You're just a concerned citizen. How would you be liable?
Because I have an ABC card. Because the way it's taught in class in dram shop laws is it doesn't matter if you serve them or not. By being a vendor of alcohol in the state of Tennessee, you're required to take the class. By taking the class, you know the rules. And by knowing the rules, you're obligated to do your due diligence to keep people from driving drunk. That's essentially the Cliff Notes version of the law. Doesn't matter if you served them or not. Doesn't matter if...
I would say 99.9% of the time that has never been prosecuted against someone.
It depends who they run over on their way home. Because that's usually...
Are they going to find everyone this person interacted with? Like, excuse me, do you have an ABC? Do you have an ABC? Did you see this guy? Did you see a guy with brown hair? Yeah? Do you have an ABC card? Come with me.
I mean, I don't think I will be criminally, no, but I will be civilly liable, sure. I would say that a good attorney for somebody who gets hit by a drunk driver is going to go... Because by law, they can sue the bar, the bartender, the driver themselves, the owner of the bar separately from the bar. I wouldn't see it as a huge stretch for an attorney to go, everybody in the room, I want to talk to them. And hell, everybody pays with credit cards. It's not hard to look up. You could get a majority of the people. You could get a list of the majority of the people in the room at the time this person came and went, pretty easily. And I think, and the way the law is written is a victim of a DUI has pretty wide latitude on who they're allowed to hold liable. Now, will it hold up? I don't know. I'd be like, hey man, I was in the bathroom. I don't know what the fuck's going on. That guy came in, went. I don't know. I might have saw him. I don't know. There's 100 people in the room.
Exactly.
It'd be a hard case to prove, but it doesn't mean you can't try. And the fact that I have an ABC card makes it part of it. I don't know how we got on that tangent. It doesn't matter. I doubt that would happen. I agree. It's unlikely. But it doesn't matter if you serve or not. If you're the bar or the bartender, and if I'm bartending and you walk in and I'm bartending and you're hammered, I'm like, nah, man, you're good. You've had enough tonight. And you're like, okay, and you stumble back out the door and get in your car. I am just as liable as the person who actually serves you.
Right.
That is the law. And so is my boss, who may not even be there in the bar that we work in, and likewise. Now, again, it's very rare that these things come all the way back that way, but...
I was going to say, I'm trying to remember the last place that's even gotten in trouble for that.
Because
it's pretty much a given that, like, almost every night there's people getting... So I was like, it'd be cool to be a bartender. Then I'm like, I don't want that risk.
You're
essentially over-serving everyone every night.
You cannot legally bartend. You cannot legally drink in public. It is 99% impossible. You sure as shit can't own and operate a profitable bar or restaurant that serves alcohol within the rules of alcohol law. You can't. It's just not possible. Which is weird. It sucks.
There's that new place downtown. I can't remember the name of it, but you get like a wristband and you just kind of keep filling up your cup.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people they've got trying to keep eyes on everybody. Like, is that your 15th time?
It's all digital. So
did you get like a little? It's all digital. That's knowing what to charge. Yeah, I guess.
Because you scan the wristband to be able to pour.
Right.
And I would assume that inside the computer system, it's like, this dude's on his 13th. We may need to check. There's a wine one. There's Pour. That's a wine bar that does that. That's out here off North Shore.
Yeah, I've been there before.
I sat at the bar and drank beers, and I watched all these people wandering around.
I got some fancy beer that was almost in like a cognac-style glass.
Little kiosk of wine distribution.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I was sitting there with one of the Eagle distributors drinking Terrapins because he was buying, because as long as he's buying beers that he distributes, Eagle pays for it. Nice. So he's fun to hang out with because he's always buying.
Nice.
And especially now that they've expanded into more of the craft market, it's more fun. Like when it was like, hey, man, here's a Bud Light. All right. Yeah. Here's another Bud Light. Ugh.
We had a friend that worked at the restaurant right next to it, and it was always paying the ass because that Pour sells food, but they don't have a kitchen. They all get it from the kitchen that's next door.
Well, it's the same owner.
Right.
It might be the Aubrey's guy. I can't remember who it is. It's one of the guys that owns like a bunch of concepts here in town.
Yeah, it's one of the Aubrey's guys.
Because it's the bistro guy.
Right.
Because that's the restaurant side.
Right.
Which Union Jack's is leasing the old bistro building, which I'm excited about.
Cool.
They're just going to leave it empty. They don't want to lose the parking.
Uh-huh. So now we finally have an answer when people keep asking, like, who owns that building?
That guy.
Yeah.
Not really, but I don't know I don't know how he did the lease because he could sublet it. Because if he gets a lunchtime, like a little lunch place, a little bistro that doesn't do dinner, it won't affect his business much.
Maybe he just wanted the big smoker that was in the back.
Maybe. He's got a full kitchen. Well, actually,
right,
it's got a full kitchen, and he doesn't have a full kitchen in Union Jack's currently, so he might actually move the kitchen over there. He could extend the patio across the back. Yeah, let's do it. He can't lose that parking. Fuck.
Yeah, I was about to say that'd cut into so much parking.
I don't know.
I mean, they had some guy fixing the AC last year.
Well, it had some.
And I looked in the front window, and you can still see the big, huge, like, hood vents.
Yeah, the guy said, a guy came over and was talking to Jacob, said that if we wanted any of the furniture in there, we could go check it out and make an offer. It's like, have you seen this room, man? We can't fit any more furniture in here. But, I don't know. It's interesting. But, anyway, back to strippers.
Strippers, I was about to say.
They got shut down for nuisance law, but I can't help but get a little conspiratorial in this one. So the owner of the Ball...
It really is. It's been there like 15 years.
Yeah, but it was Bambi's before that or something like that. Or,
I don't know.
it's been a strip club for many moons. And so there's a couple little two kind of tangents of conspiracy that I have on it. One, the owner has been suing the county since 2004 with a number of other adult establishments in county. In 2004, Knox County, so we were talking about ABC card. That is one of a list of the state of Tennessee gives Knox County permission to require professional licensure or permit if the permit includes, or if the practice can be proven to have a secondary negative effect on the community. Don't know what that means legally. So Knox County requires a permit to sell alcohol.
Requires interpretation.
Right, but
leaves room for interpretation.
Basically it's the same permit as a bartender. To be a bartender in Knox County, you have to have a professional privilege license via the county to be able to do the job. And the argument for that is that they teach you all these things on how you cannot run a successful bar legally in the county. But that ABC class that we've been talking about for the last little bit is the sales pitch, and then you pay a fee to take the class and get the card. And the ABC card is a 5-year card. Well, the stripper card's a 1-year card. $50 a year to be a stripper. But it's not just a stripper. It's anybody who works in the industry. So doormen at strip clubs, strippers, owners of strip clubs, adult stores. So if it's toys and stuff and videos and any of that kind of stuff, their staff is required to hold this permit as well. And so a number of them got together and have been suing the county saying, this is unconstitutional. You can't require my staff to take this permit. You can't prove this secondary negative effect thing of what we do. And so I can't help but think there's a little bit of politics at play that a plaintiff that has been suing the county for an extended period of time, who does also happen to have some issues with clientele in and around his establishment over the years, gets shut down on a nuisance. The nuisance in and of itself, by the definition, makes sense. They had a shooting. A couple of guys got killed there. They had apparently a couple of years ago, they had like a fucking riot in the parking lot, like a big 20-on-20 brawl out in the parking lot. I don't know what exactly the backstory is on who these groups of people were and why they were fighting against each other in a large group or whatever, but they've had history of things that makes the nuisance law applicable.
Yeah.
And then Sharm Allen, who is currently running for district attorney in Knox County, goes out there for the shutdown and gets a big photo op, and News Sentinel and a couple of different news organizations are out there to get the photo op of her shutting this place down. I can't help but think that part of this is politically motivated. I can't help but think that is a good, that would be a good campaign point for a candidate who actually does have control over something like this. She can choose to or not to. She could choose. She brought this to also campaigning Republican Steve Sword, judge, This was brought by the DA's office to Mr. Sword's court for permission to serve this warrant or whatever it's technically called to shut this business down. I mean, they went and put a padlock on the door. Like, owner can't even go in there and get his paperwork or his pack of cigarettes he left on his desk. Nothing. Can't even get in the building. And so there's part of it. I can't help but see a little bit of politics inside this as well. Possibly. Now, does it stand on its own merits? Probably. There's a secondary that goes into my secondary theory on what's going on here, but I find it a little bit strange that you have multiple. This is not a new thing. They haven't had a recent incident as far as I know. This is stuff this is all history stuff. It's not like there was one more thing last week and this was the one that broke the camel's back and so they did it now. Okay. I didn't hear that in the story. Maybe I missed that. But as I gather it, this is all old news. So why now? Because Sharm's running to keep her seat. Sword's running to keep his seat. You know, Spangler's already got his seat, so it doesn't really matter to him.
Keeping track of how many times they have to go out there.
Spangler is.
Right. They're making.
I'm just saying I can't help but see a little politics in this one. Maybe I'm overseeing it, but
a lot of things like that happen in
but
an election year.
Why would she go out to put the padlock on the door with the cops?
I guess it could have just been a photo op. Yeah, like you said.
I mean, I can't. I mean, to me, that's a Knoxville version of Trump clearing the streets so he can go hold a Bible.
Right.
I mean, I can't.
Upside down.
I just can't imagine that she goes out to many of these kind of situations normally.
Probably not. Yeah.
You know, as part of her job, she needs to go out and be part of the team that shuts the place down while the press is there, so she can get pictures. It seems a little bit meh to me. The other issue I have with it is because the industry is so restrictive. I would argue that it is likely that some of the nuisance issues that occur there is because clientele doesn't have an option. And we can postulate about the terrible types of people that like to go and frequent these types of places and whatnot all we want to.
I think the owner basically said, these are people that we've had problems with in the past, and they've been told not to come back, and they keep trespassing. That was that was his kind of vague
okay, so we had that shooting at that bar, the Hat Makers or whatever, right? Those two bikers shot each other.
Yeah.
Right? So we had that one. Right? Now that one's less dramatic in the sense that there are tons of bars in Knoxville. You know, if one biker gang, because we have biker gangs in Knoxville, it's just reality. If one biker gang makes this their home bar, the other biker gangs avoid it. Not a big deal. You know, but what do we have? 3 strip clubs in Knox County?
Something like that.
I mean, there's only one in South Knox, and that's this one. And so if groups of people that don't like each other in public but do like to go to strip clubs only have one option, they're going to run into each other because the industry is so restrictive and makes it so hard for other options to be available. So that's my secondary kind of conspiracy in the thing. It's like if we had more strip clubs in town, this might not have happened.
Wait, never mind. I thought you're saying they were closing one down just to drive
No, I'm saying it's the other way. It's like
all those bad people to the other 2 places so they can shut down the other 2 places. They're like, well, now you guys are being a nuisance.
Right. And then tip-top level of why at least I can prove for without a doubt that Mayor Jacobs is not a libertarian is that the stripper license exists and the ABC card exists. If he was a libertarian, he would be doing his best to get rid of things like that. Libertarians hate professional privilege licensure. So, anyway, that's my take on the strip club story. I think it's ridiculous that you have to have I think it's dumb that a stripper needs to have a special license. I shared it with I accidentally sent it to my realtor.
Nice. What they have to say about that?
I didn't even notice it. She didn't say anything back. I didn't notice it for 2 days. And then I was texting her about something else. I was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to send that to you."
Probably assumed I don't think they meant to send that to me.
Let's see here. I didn't send it to the group. I sent it to her instead. Not that one. Not that one. This one. Yeah. So, Knox County, Tennessee, application for sexually oriented business employee license. All right, here's the questionnaire. There is no class for this as far as I understand it. It's just fill out the form, pay your $50, and then you can go get naked in public. Well, semi-public. Your full true name, which I've never seen that on a form before. I mean, I guess they want to make sure you're not using your stage name.
Well, I mean, some people have a weird name. They're like, everybody calls me Bobby.
Yeah, but on an application, on any type of application in the history of any job you've done, any paper you ever fill out, did they
Just says full name, yeah.
right? Any other names you've used in the last couple of years, current business or mailing address, that being if you're the owner or a worker. Can you prove you're 18? Yeah. Do you have proof of proving you're 18? Yes. Have you been convicted or pled guilty or nolo contendere to a specific criminal activity? We'll have to go down and see the definition. For purposes of this application, specified criminal activity means any of the following specified crimes for which less than 5 years elapsed time since the date of conviction to the date of release from confinement of the conviction, whichever is the later date. So have you ever been convicted of rape, aggravated sexual assault, public indecency, statutory rape of a child, sexual exploitation of a minor, indecent exposure, prostitution, patronizing a prostitute, promoting prostitution, obscenity, I don't know what that means. I'd like to know what the definition of obscenity is by the state of Tennessee, any attempt, solicitation, or conspiracy to commit one of the foregoing offenses. So if you've tried to be obscene, but weren't.
I was not successfully obscene.
Any offense in another jurisdiction that has the predicate acts been committed in Tennessee would have constituted any of the foregoing offense. So if another state has a different term for the same crime, that counts.
Right.
Okay, so you can't be a sex offender and be a stripper. All right, going back up. If yes, all the details of the whatever. If you need another page, check here. Have you had an influential interest in a sexually oriented business that in the past 5 years has been declared by the court of law to be a nuisance, which now every employee there is? So any stripper that is working at the ball is now ineligible to work at another strip club.
I think it's still pending.
Okay. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know the details of that, but so ball got shut down last week. You're going to another club because you need to work,
right?
And you're filling out your new form. Well, you're not filling out your new form because your old one's still active. Right. But say it's the end of your thing and you got to renew.
You already got your stripper license.
You have to say yes on this. If additional space is needed, check here. How many different clubs have you worked in that got shut down?
That's only $25.
$50 for initial, $25 for your annual renewal. That makes it a little better. By signing this, you say it's true, sign date, and that. Yeah. So, all right. So, in my standard stupid question that annoys the shit out of you,
how does this help you and me?
You got it. How does this benefit anybody? Anybody in Knox County? Me? Anybody?
I'd say to one extent. I mean, and probably more, more dishonest places. Possibly maybe using human trafficking to bring in dancers, or possibly pseudo prostitutes as well. Or you've at least got a form. You're like, I had her fill this out. I don't know. I'm assuming they don't do a background check. This doesn't give any kind of information.
It doesn't say so. I'd have to go back to the.
I don't think you could try to run their name, but I think outside of that, there's not much for you to really search for.
I mean, you have to have your proof. You got to have a driver's license, birth certificate.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to have just like your I-9 or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
Plus, I mean, it depends. Like I don't know strip clubs.
I'm assuming they don't do a background check for this.
You don't do a background check for the application, no.
Right.
But
the business may still, if they choose to, on a new
if
hire.
they don't really want you.
Right.
Let me just say, okay, so all right, so yes, if you're not a legal person and you're being forced to strip against your will, this could be a backstop against that.
I mean,
not really. I mean, they'll just.
Initial.
I mean, if you're trafficking people, you just traffic them elsewhere. Why would you It just puts you in a different bracket of being trafficked. It shouldn't. I wouldn't see it as a deterrent to trafficking, just a deterrent to trafficking to this specific end.
Yeah. I mean, I doubt they're doing spot checks where they go in there like, all right, you have, 8 people here right now. I want to see their 8 forms.
I mean, these are on file anyway. Well, they get a card. I'm assuming they get a card like we got ABC cards.
Yeah.
And you'll have that card in your whatever. Because I know some strip clubs, I don't know if all, I don't know exactly how it works, but I know some strip clubs is more like a barbershop where the stripper is an independent contractor and they rent stage time and they pay the club either a percentage of their tips or a fixed.
Is that more of a high-end?
I don't know. I was doing some research on this and like I found like a page that was like how to start your own strip club or.
I've heard about like famous ones in Atlanta and some big cities. They have like the famous ones where like the big names come out, and even like porn stars every once in a while will come and be the Friday, Saturday night.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like a dance club or whatever. You have a high rolling DJ roll in or whatever. But
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, okay, I see where you're coming from that one. I'll give you that. Is that it?
Off the top of my head,
at
the moment, yes.
I don't see. I other than it's a tax on. It's a tax on an employee that we as the county don't like, and we want to discourage it by taxing you to do the job. I don't see the value in it. I mean, I think prostitution should be legal anyway, so that's a whole separate thing. But why? Like, it's not. We're not doing not like a health screening or anything like that to make sure that customers aren't getting sick off of lap dance, even though they're not supposed to touch by Tennessee law. But
right.
I don't see how this protects a customer. I see a little bit. I'll give a little bit of ground in the owner manager part of it, saying if you were, if you own the place and you have like an aggravated assault or aggravated rape charge in your past, maybe being around a bunch of naked girls is probably not a good, safe choice for you or them. Like, I could see it as a deterrent for a real shitbag being an owner of a strip club so that he can take advantage of the girls.
I was thinking this was pretty much just for the dancers.
Right. Well, but and so
the owners
I could see it. I could see it on the. I'll give that one a little bit of credence. But then the other version of it that makes no sense is if I'm working at Sexy Stuff over there on Ebenezer selling DVDs and dildos, that I have to take this and pay this fee. Like, how does that help those customers? I mean, it might actually be a bonus if you're a sex offender working in a place like that, because you might find a freak that's into the crazy shit you're into, and it's no longer a sexual assault. It's actually a consensual sexual experience. Silver lining. See, I'm a positive person. I like to look for the silver lining in situations.
Sure you do.
As long as it doesn't involve cops, I can find a silver lining.
I mean, the novelty stores, I don't get as much. I'm not sure what the logic is behind that.
Let's be realistic. This is a tax on. It's a sin tax. This is a. We don't like. We can't stop you from existing. We don't like that you exist. We wish we could just not let you get a business license, but we have no grounds to say no to your business. So we're going to add a layer to make it complicated and more expensive.
But I mean, in the grand scheme, $25 a year.
I don't know. I mean, it's for what? Where does that $25 go? What is that? I mean, like at least
printing out more of these forms.
At least on the surface, the ABC card is paying for the class you have to go sit through.
Right.
But it's 20 people at $50 a head. What's that? $1,000? That cop get paid $1,000 for 5 hours of work?
Maybe.
Then the complaint that our cops don't get paid enough, so they all just need to start teaching classes because that's where the money's at. I was saying, if you want to tax it, what's the tax going towards? Is it going towards some like victims of sexual assault? Not that that's a really fair tax to put down on those people either, but what's the tax for? If it's a punitive tax, that's the problem. It's not about how little it is. It could be $5. It's the principle at this point. That you're punitively taxing somebody for a lifestyle that you don't approve of because you're the government.
No, I don't know if they get separate business taxes, if they're somehow tax exempt for being in an entertainment industry. I don't know if that puts them into a different thing. Where they. I
mean, it's income tax. There's business. I mean, they as far as I understand it, they have all the same business taxes any other business in Knoxville runs. I'm assuming they have a health inspection too because they do serve food and drinks.
Right.
But they have every other business expense and every other business tax and business fee and property tax and all the other stuff that every other business pays, and then this is on top of. But again, I agree. $25 is whatever. It's not that much money, but it's a principle issue to me. It's not a monetary issue. And because to me, this is we don't like your lifestyle choice, so this is what we're going to do to make you pay for your deviantness.
And we could always send them an email to whoever does this. We're like, hey, I'm just looking for a little clarification, just looking for a little reasoning behind this.
I mean, that's kind of my point in bringing
of when and why this got extended to.
Like if Mayor Jacobs was a libertarian, he would have stopped it. He would have put an end to it. This lawsuit would die if Mayor Jacobs was actually a libertarian, because he would do away with this. Because if he's a libertarian, he's on the same principle that I'm going on here of who is it, who does it benefit? If professional privilege tax is I mean, libertarians hate taxes, period, whatever. But professional privilege is one of the ones that are specifically like those are ones that are actually attainable. I think truly like pragmatically functional things that we can go after on a political stance as libertarians.
It still blows my mind. You go to their official page and you click on the taxes. It's like a paragraph that is just super vague. And this is the National Party. This is their explanation of how they view taxes.
They hate taxes. They don't want them to exist. They think they shouldn't exist because it's forced collectivism, and that's against the policy.
Well, I just love it. They throw in there like, if people want to pay taxes, that's cool. If they don't, then they shouldn't have to. And that's about it. It's like, really? You guys want to be a major third party, and you guys want to throw like 5 sentences together, and that's it. That's our explanation of taxes. I mean, at least expand it out a little bit.
I mean, you could just go do the easy, lazy, one-sentence libertarian answer and say taxation is theft. Next subject.
Okay, yeah, they could do that.
I mean, I would prefer that to. I haven't read the one that you're talking about, but if it's weird and vague and random, I mean,
I'll pull it up. It's kind of funny.
Was it lp.org, right?
I think so. And it does kind of start with that. We don't. Taxes should be forced on. But I don't know.
We are the issues platform, preamble, statement of principles, privacy, parental rights, adult rights.
I thought they had an actual sublink just to taxes.
Economic liberty.
Yeah, because this had its own page. Was what I went to. Check out the merch page.
Economic liberty. Libertarians want all members of society to have an abundant opportunities to achieve economic success, a free and competitive market. 2-1 aggression. Property and contract aggression is the use transit.
Try the drop-down menu of Libertarian Party. The issues, yeah. No?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is the...
Who we are, maybe?
National Committee. This is all changing. I don't know if they've updated it. They just had their...
Maybe they've updated it since. They're like, we should probably take that stupid tax pages out.
They actually just had their restructuring thingy.
So they've changed it a little bit.
Yeah. There's a lot of libertarians that are not happy about it.
Because actually, I thought it was on a drop-down or something. It was an actual link to... It was, like I said, it was at most a paragraph. And that's being generous. Privacy,
personal relationships, crime and justice, death penalty, self-defense, environment, energy, government, finance, and spending. Since all persons are entitled to keep the fruits of their labor, we oppose the government activity that consists of forcible collection of money or goods from individuals as a violation of their individual rights, and strive for the eventual repeal of all taxation. To further that end, we call for the repeal of income tax, the abolishment of the IRS, and all federal programs and services not required under the U.S. Constitution. We oppose forcing employers to serve as tax collectors. We support any initiative to reduce or abolish any tax and oppose any increase of any tax for any reason. To the extent possible, we advocate that all public services be funded or allowed to be provided in a voluntary manner.
So they at least spiffed it up. I'll give them that.
I
like that compared to the previous. But I mean, that's one thing that just boggles my mind. That I don't know how they expect to fund a sustainable country.
Right. Well, I mean, I think for my end,
I just think if people want to give to the police, the people, it should all be voluntary.
For my end,
who is going to do that?
For my end of libertarianism, is I haven't read through this updated version recently.
Yeah.
But for the general principles of it, I want my federal government to be as close to this as I can remember. I don't mind a state or a local government doing it. Like, it makes more sense to me having a local. It's still problematic, and it's still against principle.
I mean, is there anywhere that this is more predominant, that is thriving? Anywhere in the world?
A libertarian culture?
A libertarian government?
I don't know of one, but I don't know.
I'm just curious. Yeah. I don't know if some of this was modeled after something. I don't know, a commune somewhere. I don't know.
I mean, a lot of libertarianism is like, this is why a lot of people put libertarians in the right wing camp.
Is this part of like the Tea Party rebranded?
Sorta. The Tea Party was a further right version, because that's the thing. Like, the thing to me, and like, it's clear when we get into some of the other issues. Like, when you get into monetary policy, because again, these are platform stances that at least the major parties don't follow their own platforms anyway. But for the sake of conversation, when you get into monetary policy, when you get into the debt and the red tape, air quotes, libertarians line up with the right in platform.
I mean, it seems like it's just
The
like
smaller
asking
government
for the goodwill of the people, essentially, to have.
Okay, so let's try it as a thought experiment, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day. We were playing Foursquare with kids.
Let's think about it.
And so my eldest goes, "What would you do if we had a purge?"
Holy shit.
They've never seen them. They've seen references to them, and they've seen videos where people talk about it and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. Like, it actually got me thinking, like, legitimately. And I don't know why. I'm glad it came back to me just now, because I think this would have been a great discussion if we had the other guys here too. But what do you think would happen? Not what would you personally do, but what do you think would happen if Knox County said, 4th of July, whatever you want. Knox Sheriff's Office, KPD, even UT Police are taking the day off. Anything that happens, we have no grounds for anything. What do you think would happen? Like, realistically.
95% of the people would lock down.
Okay. 5% of the people do what? Go out and loot and steal?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would be, and Anthony and Max, maybe Jacob, who'd be sitting at the shop. Be sitting at the shop for the day, probably armed to the teeth. But it would probably end up being a regular business day. That would be my guess. I think you would have some people trying to do some shit, but
why would people pay?
Because I'll shoot them.
Oh. You think they're still going to buy some with a gun drawn on them?
I'm not saying I'm going to stand there with my pistol trained on their face when they walk in the door, but I'll have it on my person, because I know that right now there's nothing I can do. Or rather, rephrase that. There's nobody coming to save me. Now, the question, I guess this is what got me thinking about it, is the question is, if I were working right now and somebody walked in the shop and robbed me, what am I going to do? I'll call the cops afterwards. I'll send them the pictures, and we can pull off whatever as best we can in identifying the person. But realistically, what's going to happen? Probably nothing. Insurance might come in and cover whatever. Not really, because it's probably not enough to offset, a deductible or whatever.
Claim or whatever.
Right? So, but that's what got me thinking about it. It's like, realistically, what would actually happen if we had purge days? I'm not advocating that we should, by any means. But I don't think it would be anything like those movies. I think, sure, yes, absolutely, there'd be some people that would go out there and kill somebody they've been wanting to kill forever because they weren't getting in trouble for it this time. But by the numbers, I think 5% is an overestimate. I think it would be less than 1% of the population would go out there and shoot and steal and rob and murder and do any of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, most people would do their best to avoid anything and probably take the day off. You're probably right.
I think most of it, but I think I've also seen it stated that most crimes are essentially, crimes of opportunity. A lot of people need to do shoplifting at a place where people aren't really looking.
Right.
Or most people will do things
But that's not about the
when they know
police.
they can get away with it. To where in that same concept, if they know that they can get away with anything, then
But they can't.
anything
But
is
that's
allowable.
My point is, I don't know that. I wouldn't think that would be. The first one might get a little crazy, but I think the second one would be pretty. It'd just be a normal day.
First purge.
The first one would be a little crazy because people would be like, you know what?
Are they serious? Are they? Is there camera? Is this one was like, gotcha? Where, Ashton? Where are you? Did I just get punked?
I'm just saying, like, I could see the first one as being problematic because people are like, oh, I can go out and steal whatever I want. Well, I can stay into my shop and shoot you when you try to steal my shit, which I shouldn't get in trouble for anyway, but I certainly won't get in trouble for it on Purge Day.
Right.
When the next Purge comes around and it's like, well, we can't steal from that guy's shop because he'll murder you. Maybe I shouldn't steal from anybody's shop because I might get shot. My point in all this is not to encourage a purge. My point is that I think it's a Michael Malice idiom, is that the safety and authority that we put in the police or the safety systems that we have in place are only there because we believe they're there. They're not actually there. Realistically, yes, I could get tracked down and arrested for the theft that I committed on if it wasn't a purge day as opposed to a normal day. Or right, if it was a normal day and not a purge day or whatever, if they figure out that it was me that did the robbery, the cops will come and get me, and so that's a little bit of a deterrent. But at the end of the day, if I want the thing and I want to steal the thing, it doesn't matter if it's a purge day or not. People go steal the thing. They take that chance. They take the risk of, we're in Tennessee. You take the risk of getting shot by a shop owner or getting hit with a baseball bat by the shop owner because you're trying to steal his shit. So I guess my point is I don't think it would be – I think maybe the first one would get a little crazy, but I think after that it would just be a chill, just normal day. I don't think it'd be any different than any other day. Because I think people are smart enough to know that it's not going to be like that. Unless there's some huge organized group that gets together and goes and tactically takes down shopping centers to loot and rob them. I don't think there's any. I don't see it as a bunch of people are just going to go steal from their neighbor because they can. Because they could do that anyway. I mean, realistically, in the world we live in, you could do it anyway, and most likely you're going to get away with it. Murder's a little different.
Possibly they at least know on that day that they will get away with it outside of
me protecting my own shit.
Personal repercussion, right. Yeah.
And so, I'll lock down the house. I'll say, I don't know. Or maybe I'll hire a third party. Maybe I'll create
I almost brought that up. I'm like, all right, you're at the shop. Who's at home?
Right. Maybe I'll be at home and I'll create a company that employs a bunch of vets to come and do security for the purge day. I mean, it's essentially. I mean, I don't know. It's a fun. It's the actual movies themselves are fun, crazy, like ridiculousness. But I think the reality is that it would be nothing like that. It would be mostly lockdown, and everybody just kind of take the day off. And the few people that try to do some shit will probably get murdered.
I mean, it's happened in blackouts and brownouts.
Right. That's because you're not expecting it. The
right, but
the defense part isn't.
But that's when it goes into that crime of opportunity. It's when they know the lights are off, the security cameras are off. Like, hey, I'm 2 blocks away from. Well, I mean, we don't have Radio Shacks anymore, but it's Radio Shack with tens of thousands of dollars worth of electronic equipment.
Hey, it's your birthday! Happy birthday! You know you're old. You just said Radio Shack as a reference.
But I precursored with that. I think I did see somewhere there's like 1 or 2.
There's one Blockbuster left
remaining
in Montana or something.
I think I've seen something about that, but it's like personally owned or whatever. And They just were allowed to keep the name.
Okay, so we had a bunch of gun stuff go on, and I thought of something and then I lost it. We talked about red flag already. Talked about moving to 21 already. Magazine.
And what's your big worry with red flag laws?
I mean, it's the same. It's my same general
of how they classify an actual red flag.
I mean, who gets to pick what the red flags are? I mean,
generally the courts, legislature.
Okay.
I mean, the courts are going to be the one to enforce it. So
okay, so like local example would be the Democrat or the GOP is a supermajority in the state of Tennessee.
all right.
What would stop? What legally speaking, what would stop a supermajority of Republicans from making Democrats red flaggable? To say the definition of a mental illness is being a liberal.
Technically, nothing outside of the courts, I guess.
But what are the courts?
Because, I mean, the legislature can pass a law, but I think it's the courts that then decide whether or not
it's legal within the Constitution of the state.
Right.
Well, being a Democrat isn't a protected class. It's not a civil rights issue. I can't think. I don't know. I don't know the state constitution well enough, but I can't think. I would be hard pressed to think that there is any language outside of protected classes about a discriminatory factor. And again, I know that's an extreme example and an unlikely example.
But that's the first thing you jump to.
Sure. Okay, so let's say we continue to grow and we start doing well. And the ridiculous shit that I spew out on this show and my libertarian values and how I don't trust cops and I don't trust the government and I don't like these people. How do they not define me as a threat?
Because you're exercising your First Amendment protected free speech.
Okay. So how do we justify any red flag law other than evidence of the person's activities and actions and thoughts? My point is you can't define this. It's undefinable and it will be a gray area that can move.
Hey, fucking look up red flag laws.
Okay.
Jackass, since you don't want to.
Okay.
Assuming a crime would have to be committed.
You're assuming that
a red flag.
Okay, what about mental illness? Isn't that one of the ones that red flag is? What if I talk about suicide? Is that red flaggable?
Yes.
Is suicidal thoughts a mental illness? By the standard of pediatric
mental illness, no.
Okay, so we already have a agreed upon factor that we would say that's a red flaggable issue. But it's not a crime because it's free speech. I can talk about killing myself, right? And it's not a mental illness by definition, but we have this one that we're going to include because we think it's important. And it's outside of those two factors.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else can we include outside of those two factors if those are the two factors we're going to lean on? Is Adderall going to be a medication, a mental medication that excludes? I mean, what are the factors? And who gets to decide what they are? I understand that they exist, but just because they exist in California doesn't mean they're going to exist the same in Tennessee. Or if we put a national red flag law in place, then what? Trump comes in and changes it. Then Kamala gets elected, changes it again.
This is red flag traffic laws. Oh, it's in the United Kingdom? Oh, and the U.S. What the hell? What? It's weird. It's like the first thing that pops up when I just look at red flag laws. Red flag laws were laws in the United Kingdom and United States enacted in the late 19th century requiring drivers of early automobiles to take certain safety precautions, including waving a red flag in front of the vehicle as a warning. Fun fact.
Indeed. Fun fact indeed. No.
I mean, I believe to enact a red flag law, I guess, on a person, I believe it does have to go through the court. It's almost like a search warrant or an arrest warrant.
Okay. Who are the judges? The elected ones? So they have a political motivation on perhaps certain individuals who are maybe loud and opposed to them in public. If the elected DA and the elected judge decide that I am a threat to the community at large and want to take my guns, but I'm not mentally ill, and I don't have a criminal record of any sort, of any violence at least,
Are you against temporary protection orders?
What is a temporary protection order?
An order of protection that someone can have the courts have essentially tell someone they need to stay at least
they're
500 feet away from you.
I don't know. I'm not sure specifically. They don't really matter.
You're in a domestic partnership.
They don't really
someone
matter.
is threatening you. It doesn't matter.
Did we not have a discussion last week, 2 weeks ago, about the whole cops aren't obligated to put themselves in danger thing, and the lady in Colorado who had an order of protection from her ex-husband, who then came and killed her 2 kids and her 2 kids and somebody else or something like that, right? And she told the cops that there's an order of protection, right? And the cops still didn't do anything. Was that an accurate description of an order of protection and how it's supposed to work?
Not exactly, but no.
The cops are supposed to do something. So she has a restraining order on her ex-husband because he's violent and dangerous towards her and her kids. He comes around, she calls the cops, and they don't do anything.
Yeah, he wasn't supposed to have custody of him. I think he had some kind of weird, like, temporary custody or whatever, but he wasn't supposed to have them for the amount of time that he did have them.
Didn't return them when he was supposed to.
Right.
I don't know.
I think he was supposed to.
I get the idea, and
essentially get approval.
In principle, I can understand the idea of it, sure. But practically speaking, I mean,
all right.
In the cases that I've seen when people have had them, like, okay, so I had a customer at the bar when I was working at the bar. Dude walks in, she's like, I got a restraining order on him. I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? She's like, call the cops. I was like, you call the cops. I don't want to be a part of this. What are we doing?
Right,
so she calls the cops. He comes and sits at the bar. I go over there and be like, hey, man, do you know that lady over there? He's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, all right. And he gets up and leaves.
Okay. Did they make a report about that you would have known about?
I don't know. They might have.
So when things like that work and you didn't hear about it, you just assume that you want to focus on the one case.
Well, as far as I know, she
didn't. Kids were murdered.
As far as I know, she didn't call the cops back and say he left, and they never showed up. So I don't know what they did or didn't do.
Okay.
But again, as far as I knew,
but he abided by it.
He did. But as far as I knew, the cops had really nothing to do with it other than the overarching threat that never actually happened. Because as far as I know, and I talked to her about it, she never called him back and said, hey, he left, don't worry about it. He didn't realize I was here. He left. Don't worry about it. She never said anything. Cops never showed up. She called for help, and the cops never showed up. So, because he was cool and understanding and knew that he had an obligation to do that by law and left, okay, that's great. It's very great. But the police part of the enforcement of it failed miserably.
Did you overhear her conversation when she called the cops?
She said, I can't remember what the title was of the individual, but she says, basically, it was the dude that I have a restraining order against just walked into an establishment that I'm sitting in right now.
Right.
I didn't hear their side of the conversation.
Okay.
She said, okay, and hung up. So maybe they said, well, if he tries to interact with you, do something. Maybe. It's possible. They might not have said they were coming.
So you assume she called them for them to come, and you just assume that they just didn't show up.
I do assume that, yes.
Okay.
And you assume, because you are the positive guy in the room, that they had a whole long conversation, and she explained everything, and for the most part, he's cool. And as soon as he notices me, he'll probably leave. And if he does notice me and doesn't leave, then I'll call you back. And they said, okay, great. Well, if he does notice you and doesn't leave, call us back. We'll be right there. That's probably what actually happened. You're right.
Now, my assumption is they probably told her, okay, well,
was he violating the order?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know that specific order, but I'm assuming if she's saying if they're in the same place, I'm assuming most of them are at least 500 feet.
Right. It is unlikely that he was able to be in the same building, sir.
All right.
Okay.
But I'm assuming they said, basically like, okay, well, if you have any trouble, call us back. It's not like she was calling saying like, hey, I have a stringer on this person and he's threatening me.
Okay, you could be 100% right. I don't know any better. You're right.
All right. But in your version of it, cops just didn't do anything. She called and they didn't do anything.
Right. That is my assumption. You're correct. That is my assumption. I don't have the facts to follow that up, but that is my assumption.
Man.
Yep, Lightning's 3-0. It looks like they're going to tie up the series. Anyway, did you find red flag laws? You're going to explain to me how red flag laws work? Not to mention the practical issue with the red flag law being, hey, Sam, you've got a gun, and I'm going to come take it from you. What do you have to say about that? You just going to give it to me because I said I get to take it? There's a practical issue there. Just in logistics of, I wouldn't want to be the cop knocking on the door being like,
because you're Charlton Heston, take it out of my cold dead hands.
I don't know what you are. That's the point.
Oh.
If I'm the cop knocking on your door to come take your gun from you, I don't know what you are. Obviously, you have, obviously, at least according to the court, you have concerns about your mental stability, and the fact that you have a weapon means you're dangerous. Do I want to knock on your door and take your gun? No, I don't. Not at all. But, I'm a cop, so I should do it because it's my job. But, 6 or half dozen on that one.
Let's see here. Basic explanation. Red flag laws allow family members or law enforcement to petition a court to order the temporary removal of firearms from a troubled person. The court determines if the trouble is at serious risk of harming themselves or others with a gun, and if so, temporarily orders the person to surrender the firearm.
Okay. And what happens if they refuse to surrender it? I'm just saying, it sounds great. Like, it sounds like it's a great thing. I just don't see it.
I don't know if you would get you could possibly get like a contempt of court, because it's a judge ordered court order.
Okay, but again, it's the same. I mean, that's the same issue. It's like, okay, you have to give up your gun. Court said so. I don't want to. Well, we're going to arrest you if you don't. Okay, come and get it. That doesn't sound like a very positive interaction the cops are going to have when that situation arises. Doesn't mean it should or shouldn't happen, but as we know, cops don't have to put themselves in danger. So I wouldn't want to do it. If I were, I would think that if I was going to knock on your door to take your guns, when the court says you have to give it up and you don't want to, I would not be excited about knocking on your door. Would you be excited about knocking on my door if you were that cop?
No.
I mean, and you don't have to, by law, you don't have to put yourself in danger.
I mean, warrant officers that have to go serve warrants, do you think they're excited about knocking on the door and having to arrest someone that has a warrant out for their arrest?
No, probably not.
Okay.
But that person that they're serving a warrant on may or may not have, I mean, at least in the case that we're talking about, we don't know that they have a gun, and we don't know that the court at least thinks that they're dangerous with their gun. Like, you're literally walking into...
Generally, you know what, they have a warrant for the arrest, and you can at least look at their... I mean, if you're a law enforcement officer,
you can assume
you can
that
look
this guy...
at their rap sheet.
Right,
like,
this guy's been charged with armed robbery a bunch of times.
Petty theft or whatever, yeah.
And I would think that you knock on that door differently depending on what the warrant says on it. I agree with that. But again...
But they still probably go into with a heightened just because they don't know. I mean, someone may have only
What's a troubled person, though? I want to do,
define troubled person.
Okay, so the definition, or at least the inference in the statement that you made, was that family or police can petition a court to have somebody surrender their weapon if that person is troubled and is likely to do harm to themselves or others. That is, I mean, you're the one that talks gray area all the time. That's super vague.
How so?
How so? Like, I don't know.
That family members that are assumed to know the person well enough. I understand law enforcement aren't going to have, unless they've had previous interaction with this person.
I agree that if my mom calls the cops on me, that she's more likely to know me better than the police do. But the definition that you read off there says family or
law
police.
Enforcement.
So it doesn't necessitate family in the conversation. It can be law enforcement in and of themselves.
Not necessitate, right.
Right? So law enforcement could decide that I shouldn't have my guns.
This
For what reason? Because they think I'm dangerous to myself or others.
This is not something that just happens within a couple hours. Like, I could call and be like, hey, I've got suspicions about this person.
Okay, well, you
need to come get their guns right now.
Then there's a value issue there. if you're concerned that I'm going to kill myself and I have guns in the house and you have to go to the judge and get a red flag and it's going to take a couple hours, I might be dead before you get the paperwork done. So that doesn't seem like a very positive aspect of this effort. I guess it's, if you don't come after my gun at all, I'm not going to.
It depends on the severity. I know there's like, not really like after hours judges, but I mean, there are ways to get a hold of judges after hours. Like, hey, this is what's going on. I need you to authorize a search warrant for this or a.
Or can you sign off on this? We're red flagging Sam. We're going to red flag Sam. Here's our reason. Sign off.
Right.
And the judge thinks your reason's valid, and they sign off.
Right.
Because, so for the hypothetical, you're on the show, and we spent 6 hours and talking on the show, and the whole show you're talking about killing yourself. And I go, I think he might do it. I know he has guns. Hey, help me out here, police. I need he has guns. He's sounds pretty serious about it. He's really bummed about turning 40. So help me go get his guns from him because I don't know what else to do.
I would think initially they would probably send, because the instance I've experienced, cop showed up and ambulance showed up.
I mean, I think suicide's a little bit differently too because that's an immediate kind of.
That's what we were just talking about.
But that's a different.
That's where
the intervention. The intervention to stop a suicide in and of itself is a different thing than taking your gun away from you. That's a different process. They're like, hey, you're trying to kill yourself right now. Cops will come out and be like, hey, man, don't do it. You got so much to live for. That whole thing.
The first step to really, like, I guess, gauge from an outside perspective of what's going on with that person, that situation.
But now you've had a terrible day. You talked about killing yourself. They came out, knocked on the door. Don't kill yourself, man. It's good. And you're like, you know what? I was just kind of having a shitty day. I was venting. I apologize. But the red flag process is already in. They come take your guns, and you don't get to go hunting this weekend because you had a bad day. And the police think that you're a threat to yourself or others.
Okay.
And so you don't get to go hunting now because you had a shitty day and you talked about killing yourself one time.
Right.
That seems kind of dumb.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I can't argue that part, so that's fine.
All right. Someone's threatening to kill themselves. We shouldn't take their guns because they're going to go hunting next weekend, and we don't want to ruin that for them.
I mean, that might be the one positive thing they have in their lives that they really enjoy doing. Now they don't get to do it. I mean, I don't think that's true for you.
Okay, so that may be the one thing that makes them happy should preclude someone.
My point is, I'm saying one really shitty day, all of a sudden you have to go through a process to get your guns back.
It's possible, yeah.
Okay. And you're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not.
Okay.
Anyway. So that's one scenario. But again, you're still not answering my whole argument.
We should just let them keep their guns and just cross our fingers like, I hope he has a good weekend.
Do we want to go into this? Do we want to go into the suicide thing for me, or do you want to save that for another day because we got way late? We did this 2 weeks ago too. Got to the very end of the show and then I started talking about how I feel about suicide. But let's finish red flag. Because you're right. We're grasping at weird small examples and trying to do it whatever, but the one question or the one issue that I have from the beginning since we started talking about it has not been answered to my satisfaction.
What?
Who gets to decide?
Courts.
Who are the courts?
Judges.
Okay, so they're an elected body. So they have political influence on what they do. Politics matters to them. They're an elected body. DA's office, an elected body. Knox County Sheriff, an elected body. So let's say, I don't know.
Let's take away the sheriff's power because it's an elected body, and he probably is politically influenced.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to guess that JJ owns a few guns. Just a guess. That JJ
I would assume you're right.
That JJ owns a few guns. And maybe for political purposes, Sheriff Spangler decided that he wants to try to red flag JJ. And maybe the judge that he goes to with that red flag attempt isn't a big JJ fan for political purposes and wants to do so. There's no definition in there that says that the judge is breaking any kind of rule because there's no clear definition of what the rule is because that there's reasonable they're a danger to themselves or others. Yes, it's an extreme example. But there's
No,
nothing
you're
to
saying
stop
there's
them
no
from doing
clear
so.
rules when there are. I'm sorry.
What is
you
the clear
don't-
rule? You just read
I
it
can't-
off, and it's not clear.
I can't find it right now. Trying to Google on my fucking phone. I'm sorry that
The rule.
the
what you
search
just-
results don't give me very proper answers. It's going to give me a bunch of 90% of just bullshit websites that is trying to link me to articles of news sites talking about red flag laws. So I'm sorry, I can't find the Tennessee annotated code
because
for
it
red
doesn't
flag.
exist because Tennessee doesn't have red flag
Right.
laws.
Just using it as an example.
Okay.
It exists in
That's
some
my
sta-
okay. So
Okay.
if you can if you can show
I will
me
try by
ironclad
next
written-
week to try to find the actual court definitions and red flag laws. I will work towards that.
Okay,
by our
I would
next
appreciate that
episode.
because that is my one catch. All right, so the other one
That's your
on
one
Biden's
catch
plan-
because you're going off on assumptions and saying that like, well, there's no rules. There's no rules. There's just no rules. It's so vague.
I don't.
Then at least admit you haven't taken the time to fucking look to see if there are.
It doesn't matter.
It does
It-
matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how well they write it. It's other people's decision. It's other people than me. And who knows my life and how to live my life better than me? Does
So
a judge in Knox County
legislatures
do?
don't have a right to write laws for the state because they don't know you and they don't know our lives.
They,
They shouldn't have the right to make laws for me.
I mean, it's.
They're just elected officials that have political affiliations.
I mean, you're not. You're kind of sounding right now, even though you're trying to be sarcastic in tone.
I'm not trying. I am.
Okay, well then your sarcasm sounds pretty accurate to me. So, I mean, why can't
who?
why can't I?
So
Why,
no one can tell you what to do.
why can't I go buy a joint right now? That's not true. I can go buy a joint right now, but
Yes,
it's
you
going to
can.
be whatever. Why can't I buy a Delta 9 THC strong joint right now?
Because it is legal in the state of Tennessee.
Why?
Because the
Because some
legislature
fucktard made that decision for me because they're smarter than me about what I can put in my body. Why can't I go when I get an ear infection, and I do get those fairly regularly? Why can't I just go and get me some penicillin?
Why can't I shoot you right now?
Because I have a right to live. You don't have a right to make that decision. That's you making a decision for me. You don't get to make that decision for me. What's the old
No,
saying?
that's you making a decision for me.
No. I'm alive and dead if you make the decision you want to make. No, that's you making a decision, not me. I'm not
that's
deciding
you
to be
making the
shot.
decision what I can and can't do.
I'm not deciding to be shot. Your action. You are the one actioning in that statement.
Correct.
Your actions
Right.
that you're responsible for.
Right.
You're responsible for your actions. You don't get to choose
Right.
to end my life
Why not?
because that's not a choice you're allowed to make morally.
Why not?
I mean, why not?
Why do you get to make that rule of what I can?
I'm
and
not
can't
making
do?
that rule. That is
You're the one telling me I can't do it.
Okay, you're right. Fine. There's 4 rules that we're allowed to make.
Who else says I can't do that?
Everybody.
They can't make the rules for me. Why do they get
You're
to
right.
make rules for me, but you get to make the rules
Can
for
I
me?
shoot you?
You can, yes. You
Okay.
have the ability to.
Am I allowed to? Is that okay if I do? You have no problem with me shooting you?
By proper legal standings, you have the ability to, but you will have to suffer the repercussions of it if convicted.
Okay. So back in fair, very fair, extreme example that I like to do. Your version of the same thing. Why can't I buy penicillin for my ear when I get an ear infection?
You can.
Not without a doctor. Why do I have to bring a third party into that conversation?
I guess is it considered a controlled substance?
It's by prescription only.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no over the counter antibiotics.
Okay. Can I? Well, answer my own question. I was like, can I go buy Oxy? But I can't. If I knew the right people, I don't.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess you're right. In that sense, yes, I could. I could find some guy that deals deals in black market ibuprofen.
But I mean, in that example of why can't I go out and just go to the pharmacy and be like, I want some oxycodone.
Sure. Why not? It's better than going and getting it from your guy on the street because he's going to line it with fentanyl. And you're going to fucking die instead of getting the oxy that you're actually planning on getting. Like the idea that there is a legal market for
So it makes sense that
illegal
anyone could
drug
just
testing?
walk into a pharmacy and just ask for whatever drug they want.
Sure.
How do you logistify that.
Logistify? Please give me the definition. Maybe even the spelling of logistify real quick if you don't care.
Legify.
Okay.
IFY.
I don't give a shit what you do to yourself and your body.
Okay, you don't. Okay,
I
cool.
don't.
Okay.
And neither does anybody else really in the world.
So your rules should apply to everyone else.
Okay. Then we are getting into the suicide conversation.
No, I'm not delving into suicide
Sure
whatsoever.
we are. It doesn't matter.
You're taking your
who
own...
Who are you to tell me what I can do with my body? Why can't I go get a joint and smoke it right now? Why can't I go get oxys right now and eat a handful of them? Why can't I? Who am I hurting? Myself. Who gives a fuck about me? Not many people in the world. Handful, sure. But for the most part, it doesn't matter. What's the effect?
You don't know what you could or couldn't do when you are that messed up on oxys.
You're right. And I am responsible for the actions I take regardless. If I go out and drive my car right now and run over a child, whether I'm stone sober or fucked up on oxys, I still killed a child, and I should pay for that. Doesn't matter that I have a substance in my body or not. But if I want to go do again, but you're adding a layer to that's not even important in the conversation. If I want to go to the store and get me a bunch of heroin, come home and shoot up my heroin, who does that affect? Me. Now we get into the deep whatever. I have a family that I want to take care of, which makes it a poor life choice for me and my family for me to be a heroin junkie. But who the fuck are you to tell me what I get to do in my house with my body?
You have the ability to do what you like inside the confines of your home, legal or illegal.
Well, why is any of it illegal? Why is that why is any of that illegal?
Going back into
the
the purge, do we just have like perpetual purge? Just anybody do whatever they want, whenever they want.
Because again, I don't think it would be that big a fucking deal.
Just don't let it affect anyone else.
I think people would
go drive drunk. Just don't hit anybody.
Sure.
Cover one eye.
DUI is a victim.
Bad things only happen when you hit somebody else.
A DUI is a victimless crime.
You killed somebody else.
A DUI is a victimless crime. Yes. I've had 2.5 beers. I'm legally drunk. If I drive over to the store right now and pick up a couple more beers and come back and get shit hammered, but in that process I hit somebody, it's a different crime that I hit somebody between here and there than if I just did it stone sober 3 hours ago.
Yes.
Even better is I'm driving down the street with 2.5 beers in me and somebody crosses the middle line and hits me, but I'm found to be drunk at the time. I'm liable for that accident, even though I was in my lane, and all forensics show that I wasn't doing anything wrong driving.
It makes you 100% liable.
Well, it takes all liability off the other driver.
I don't think it takes all liability now.
I don't know. I'd have to dig into that a little bit further, but my understanding of it is
you can both be found at fault.
But if we're both found at fault, then my insurance is paying for my car and his insurance is paying for his car. I still take the financial hit, even though I was hit. But I was hit while driving drunk, even though I wasn't doing anything wrong.
A good insurance agent.
That would be it. Those are interesting, detailed questions. You're right. But again, the core example being it's 4:00 in the afternoon. I had early day work, and I just I had a few beers. Wanted to run to the store to get some burgers to grill for dinner tonight, and I hit somebody on the way there. That is a different crime than if at 4:00 I run to the store and hit somebody on the way there. Yeah. Because I made a decision to do something to put myself and others at risk. But I still got in the car and hit somebody anyway when I was sober, so whatever. DUI without an accident or hitting somebody is a victimless crime. It is, definitionally. If I'm drunk and I drive from here to Kentucky and nothing happens, there's no crime. In my opinion. It's a stupid life choice. It's a poor life choice. I put myself at risk. I put others at risk by my life choice. And if something
you
was to
admit
happen,
that you put others at risk by
and
making
if
those
something
choices.
and if something were to happen, I also drove from here to Ohio one time, sober, but after a 12-hour shift and super tired, and drove 8 hours to Columbus or whatever that trip is.
Yeah.
I was probably more impaired driver at 8 o'clock in the morning after working from 4 in the afternoon the day before till 4 in the morning, getting home, taking a quick shower, and driving to Ohio for a funeral. Now, if I had wrecked at 10 o'clock in the morning somewhere in the state of Ohio, I was probably more impaired as a driver then than times when I've driven drunk.
Doubt it.
But I get a better crime. But I don't get a better crime for that one because going on 30, 40 hours without sleep is less impaired than 3, 4 beers. I drank a Red Bull, which I don't like Red Bulls. I drank a Red Bull and thought I was going to have a heart attack.
It's arguable.
Functionally speaking, doesn't matter.
Physiologically,
Whatever.
I don't know.
I don't know why we're going down this subset of the said rabbit hole of the DUI part of it. I don't even remember where we started on it. Oh, yeah. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do with my life and my body? That part. My standard of, I don't care. Same thing as I don't care who or what you like to fuck. It's not my problem. It's not my business. I don't care. That's one of the big jumps in libertarianism from the right, is I don't care your orientation or anything. The difference in libertarianism and the left is I don't celebrate it either. I just don't fucking care. I don't care what you sleep with. I don't care what you like to do with your body and other people. If two consenting adults want to play with each other in whatever way they want to do it, great. Enjoy it. Have fun. I don't care. This all started with the red flag kind of stuff and trying to figure out who is a judge to say whether I'm unsafe to myself or others. How do they get to make that decision? Who gives them the right to make that decision? And yes, legally speaking, in the current world we live in, we elected the person, and we elected the sheriff, or we elected the mayor who appoints this chief, who hires their police officers and all that kind of shit. And we have given them the authority to make these decisions on our communal behalf. But who the fuck are any of those people to tell me what to do and how to do it, if I'm not hurting anybody else in the process? And it's an assumption that I might, that they think I could, that I have potential to. Well, I'm a man, and I'm a dad, and I'm a husband. I have potential to do some damage if I have to. I have a deep carnal need to be capable of doing damage if I need to. I think that's part of being an adult male, especially with, progeny to deal with and keep alive and all that kind of shit. I bought a gun because I have concern that I might need to use it. And so that if somebody comes in to harm me or my family, that I'm willing to do the terrible thing that I have to do. I don't want to do it. It's not my life goal. I'm not excited about it. But if I need to, I will. And does that make me a danger to others? Yes, abso-fucking-lutely. If you come kick my door in and try to steal my wife and kids, I will fucking murder you. Is that a danger to others? Yes. Should the state take my gun from me?
For that fact, no.
But again, the definition we got to wait for. You're right. The definition we got to wait for. Stay tuned next week, everybody. We'll have a definitional show. What are you nodding your head at?
Not my head. I'm shaking my head.
I'm sorry. It's a shaking head.
Because that was a stupid comment. I was shaking my head.
What, we're going to talk about definitions next week? You said you're going to look it up and find me some better definitions of what the standard is to red flag somebody in current places that have red flag laws. Right? You said you're going to look that up.
I was shaking my head at your precursor to it.
What was my precursor to it? I forgot already.
I don't know, but it was a stupid comment.
Well, that's me. I make stupid comments.
I was just shaking my head at your sarcasm. I was like, oh, wait, that's all right. We're going to find the definition up for it next week because I'm a danger.
Yes, I am. I mean, that's the point.
Why are you a danger? Whatever.
It's good Jordan Peterson on anyway, never mind. I'll save that for later. Anything else? Last call? Something mood. Let's bring the mood up before we call it a day. Come on, give me something good. Something fun.
That would be like an uplifting thing. I did see a crazy thing and talking about, I guess, drinking and whatnot. I want to say it was in Canada. I don't know if it was a specific province, but I believe it was just allowed for like blackout drunk to be used as a defense for certain crimes.
That
So
would not-
essentially, kind of like being like, almost like legally insane. Basically, you were out of your mind. But it's I guess at some cases it's allowed to be used as a defense.
That's
So
ridiculous.
I was like, that's crazy.
You chose to get hammered.
Right,
You made the decision to get hammered,
right.
and you deal with the consequences of the actions that you do while you're hammered.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. I mean, I get that you're completely blackout drunk. You have no.
I mean, maybe for like little piddly shit, like public indecency,
But I mean, they have
because
it
you're
for-
pissing on a fire hydrant.
I think in America we have. There's essentially like a rage thing. Like you were in. I forget the legal definition of it, but
Right, you walk in.
you
on
know,
your,
like somebody just like murdered your children, and you see the guy there, and you just pick up a ball peen hammer and just never stop until the cops show up. For 3 hours, you're just pounding him into a pulp.
yeah, the fit of rage. That is the thing.
Essentially, being blinded by rage or whatever. Was it emotional distress or something like that? I think is.
Yeah,
But there are certain
it's
cases
admissible
where-
in certain cases. Yeah, I get what
Yeah.
you're saying. That is kind of crazy, though. I mean, that's just, I don't know, that's kind of dumb. I don't like that. I disagree with that
Yeah.
wholeheartedly. You have every right to get blackout drunk. You have no right to do things when you're blackout drunk and have less consequence for them than if you
Right.
weren't. That's crazy.
You know, that vague gray area of like, how do you prove that someone was blackout drunk when they beat someone up, killed someone, raped someone, whatever.
I mean, like, I could get it for like stupid stuff like,
Vandalism.
public indecency because you peed on a fence post or something like that, and you wave your dick around at 4 a.m. because you're blackout drunk, stumbling down the street.
that was a toilet.
Right. Like, I could see you give it a little bit of leeway for something like that because you're blackout drunk as a legal standard, but to give it any sort of, like, for anything.
Right. I can't remember what specifics, but I think it was admissible in certain crimes.
That's craziness. All right. That's a show, boys and girls, ending with peeing on fire hydrants. Almost agreement, everybody. It's a Tuesday show, like we said we were going to start shifting to. It's Sam's birthday this week. Happy birthday, Sam. Almost agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out my Electric Guy 22. It's got all the links to all the different interviews I've done, as well as links to KGIS and Knox County Electric Commission. While you're there, please figure out who your district you're in, who you're allowed to vote for, that kind of stuff. And we're going to keep going from there. Like I said, I got Ms. Testerman, who's city council, so we'll talk a little bit about that, as well as her run for District 18, which is my district for full disclosure's sake. So that'll be interesting. Many thanks to Sam. Happy birthday to Sam, everybody. If you get the chance, give him a butt slap or something like that, but don't sexually assault him all the way. That'd be crazy. And inappropriate to boot. So anyway, we're almost here, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.